Opening. You checked your phone at 3 a.m. last night. Not for a message. For proof you still exist. You have built nothing anyone will post about. No launch. No headline. No moment to hold up and say look. Just Tuesday, then Wednesday, then a version of Wednesday that looked exactly like Tuesday. You went to bed and nobody clapped. Here's what nobody told you, that silence is the sound of a life being built correctly. Tonight you find out why the moments that felt like nothing were the only moments that ever matter. Tonight you find out what the voice in your head has been hiding from you since the day you were old enough to compare yourself to someone else's highlight reel. And by the end of this, you will know exactly what to do the next time you do something right and the room stays silent. You are here because you are tired. Not tired like you need sleep. Tired like you need permission. Permission to keep doing the unglamorous thing without a crowd confirming it matters. You have done the work. You have shown up when it counted and nobody saw it. You have wondered, quietly, if that means it didn't count. It counted. It's the only thing that ever counted. Sit with that. We're about to prove it 5 different ways. The voice. There is a voice in your head that keeps score. It does not use your scoreboard. It uses everyone else's. It watched your coworker get promoted for a project you built the foundation for. It watched a stranger online get 100,000 likes for a version of an idea you had 2 years earlier and never posted. It watched you cook dinner, pay the bill, show up early, tell the truth when a lie would have been easier, and it said nothing. Because none of that trends. None of that is content. So as far as the voice is concerned, none of that happened. This voice has a name you'd recognize if you sat with it long enough. It's not your enemy exactly. It's older than your ambition. It's the part of your brain that evolved to track your position in the tribe, because 10,000 years ago, being seen and approved of was the difference between eating tonight and not eating tonight. Status was survival. Applause was safety. Your brain has not caught up to the fact that the tribe is not sitting around one fire anymore. The tribe is everyone. The tribe is infinite, and it is scrolling, and it will never sit still long enough to watch you do the quiet, correct thing you did today. So the ancient tracking system inside you keeps returning the same result, no applause detected, therefore no value produced. That result is a bug. Not a fact. A bug in a system built for a world that no longer exists. The voice doesn't lie to you with big dramatic lies. It lies with omission. It shows you the launch, not the 18 months of invoices and rewrites before the launch. It shows you the trophy, not the 4 years of 6 a.m. practices nobody filmed. It shows you the wedding, not the 11 years of choosing the same person on the days that felt like nothing. It edits your evidence before you even see it. And because you never see the boring part of anyone else's story, you start to believe your boring part is unique to you. A personal failure. A sign you're doing it wrong. You are not doing it wrong. You are seeing a curated world and grading your uncurated life against it. That is not humility. That is a rigged contest, and you keep walking into it and wondering why you lose. Here is the part that will make you angry, and you should let it. The voice does not want you to win quietly. Quiet wins don't feed it. It needs a crowd to validate the scoreboard, and when there's no crowd, it doesn't conclude the scoreboard is wrong. It concludes you are. That's the trick. It protects itself by blaming you. Think about the actual moments that built whatever strength you have right now. Not the montage. The specific ones. The morning you got up on 4 hours of sleep because someone depended on you. The month you didn't quit a job you hated because people needed the income to keep coming. The apology you gave that nobody recorded, to someone who might not even remember it next year. None of it got a like. All of it built the person capable of standing here right now, listening to this, still upright, still trying. The voice will tell you that trying quietly, without proof, is the same as not trying. It is not. It is the opposite. Public effort has an audience keeping you honest. Private effort only has you. That is a harder task, not an easier one, and you have been doing the harder task for years and calling it nothing. We are going to stop calling it nothing tonight. The lie. Here is the lie, stated plainly: unwitnessed effort doesn't count. Now here is the truth, and it's not a feeling, it's biology. Your brain doesn't build competence from applause. It builds competence from repetition. Every neural pathway that makes you capable, steady hands, a calm response under pressure, the instinct to do the right thing before you've thought it through, is built by myelin wrapping around a circuit you fired again and again. Myelin does not care if anyone saw you fire that circuit. It wraps whether you're on a stage or alone in a kitchen at 11 p.m. The wrapping is silent. The result is not. Applause activates dopamine. Repetition builds structure. Those are two different systems, and only one of them makes you actually better at anything. Dopamine from a like fades in minutes and asks for another hit tomorrow. It's a slot machine, not a foundation. Myelin doesn't fade. It's why a skill you built in silence 10 years ago is still there today, and a viral moment from 10 years ago is a memory nobody, including you, thinks about anymore. So when you did the hard, boring, correct thing yesterday and nobody clapped, your brain was not idle. It was under construction. You just don't get a push notification when a synapse gets more efficient. There's no confetti animation for a habit becoming identity. It happens under the floor of your awareness, and the only proof you get is that the same task feels a little less impossible the next time you face it. Fear works almost the same way, and this matters because fear is the actual reason boring work feels unbearable some days. Fear is not a verdict on your competence. Fear is a prediction engine, running an old, outdated model of the world, flagging anything unfamiliar or unrewarded as dangerous. Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening risk and a Tuesday where nobody noticed what you did. Both register as, no safety signal detected. Both trigger the same low hum of dread. That hum is not telling you to stop. It's a smoke detector going off because you made toast. Loud, technically doing its job, aimed at the wrong target. Doubt runs on the same wiring. Doubt is your brain running a search for evidence and coming up short, because it's searching a database, social proof, external validation, that was never built to measure what you're actually doing. You feel doubtful not because you're failing. You feel doubtful because you're checking the wrong ledger. Ask your bank account if your bench press went up. Wrong instrument. Same error, different domain. Here's the part that should change how you see every unclapped day behind you. Studies on expertise, going back decades, keep landing on the same uncomfortable number, roughly 10,000 hours to reach mastery in a complex skill. Nobody is clapping for hour 4,000. Nobody is clapping for hour 7,200. The clapping, if it ever comes, arrives at the very end, for a threshold that was entirely built out of unwitnessed hours. The applause, when it shows up, is for the debt being paid off. It is never present for the paying. That means the exact days that felt most invisible were the days doing the most work. Not despite the silence. Because of it. If a crowd had been watching every rep, you'd have been performing for the crowd instead of building the skill. The absence of an audience is what let the real construction happen undistracted. So the lie says, no witness, no value. The truth is closer to the reverse. The deepest value is built specifically in the rooms with no witness, because that's the only place you're building for the work instead of for the watching. Hold that. We're about to meet people who proved it. The ones who made it. Picture a woman in her kitchen at 5 a.m., before a shift, writing pages by hand because that's the only free hour she has. No agent. No deal. No one asking to see it. She does this for years. Rejections arrive addressed to a name almost nobody outside her house recognizes. She keeps writing at 5 a.m. anyway, because the alternative is not writing, and not writing feels worse than an unanswered submission. There is no montage here. There is a woman, a kitchen, a clock, and paper. Nobody claps for any single one of those mornings. There are over 1,000 of them before anything changes. Picture a man cutting from a team as a teenager. Not benched, cut. Sent home. He goes to an empty gym the next morning before school, alone, shooting free throws nobody scores, nobody films, nobody applauds. He does this for years before a single stranger knows his name. The gym is cold. The custodian is the only witness, and the custodian is sweeping, not watching. That gym floor holds more of his actual development than every arena he'd eventually fill. The arena's got the myth. The empty gym built the man. Picture two engineers in a garage, and understand that a garage is not a metaphor for humble beginnings, it's a literal, cold, cluttered room with bad lighting, where the actual labor of debugging a machine happens one incomprehensible error at a time. Nobody is filming the 400th failed test. There is no version of that footage that would interest anyone. The failure is too boring to watch and too essential to skip. Everything that company became was constructed entirely from hours indistinguishable, to any outside observer, from wasted time. Picture a marathoner who almost drowned as a child and grew up terrified of water, who then chose, of all things, triathlon, swim leg included, and trained in a pool lane at 6 a.m. for years before a single race that mattered. Nobody in that pool at 6 a.m. knew they were watching someone rebuild their relationship with a fear that started in childhood. It looked like a person doing laps. It was a person defusing a bomb, one slow, silent length at a time. None of these people were handed a stage first and told to earn it later. The stage, when it came at all, was the very last thing to arrive, built entirely out of material nobody was watching them gather. If you had interviewed any of them mid-process, at hour 2000, at rejection 400, at free throw 10,000, they would have told you it felt like nothing was happening. They were wrong about the feeling and right about the facts, nothing was visible. Nothing being visible is not the same as nothing being built. Here's what should unsettle you in a good way. Every one of those people had a version of your voice. The one keeping score with someone else's scoreboard. The one insisting silence meant failure. They didn't succeed because the voice went quiet. They succeeded because they kept moving while it talked. The volume never became the deciding variable. The next rep did. And here's the detail that gets left out of every retelling: once the applause finally shows up, by the time the crowd arrives, the person has usually already stopped needing it. The kitchen writer at 5 a.m. wasn't writing for a future audience. She was writing because the sentence in front of her needed finishing. The free throw shooter wasn't rehearsing a highlight. He was making the next shot slightly more automatic than the last. The reward that mattered had already been collected, quietly, on the way: competence, becoming who they intended to be. The crowd, when it eventually gathered, was just late to something that had already been true for years. That is the actual order of operations, every time. Unwitnessed hours first. Competence second. Recognition, if it comes at all, last, optional, and beside the point. You are, right now, somewhere in that first stretch. That is not bad news. That is the only stretch that ever produced anyone worth becoming. Your real story. Now point all of that at your own life, because you have been telling this story wrong. You call it burnout that you're still doing the same job, showing up, doing it well, with no ceremony marking the fact. Look again. That's not burnout. That's endurance nobody trained you to name. You have absorbed disappointment, kept your temper on hard days, met obligations that had no deadline enforcing them but your own conscience, and you filed all of that under "nothing happened." Something happened. A person capable of doing that daily, without collapsing, without becoming cruel, without quitting, is not a person standing still. That person is stronger this year than last year, whether or not a single soul noticed the difference. You call it a rut that your days look the same. Look at what "the same" is actually made of. The same, done with integrity, for long enough, is the only known method for building anything durable. Nothing worth trusting was built any other way. A body capable of running is built from thousands of near-identical runs. A marriage capable of surviving hardship is built from thousands of near-identical ordinary evenings, chosen again. Sameness is not the absence of progress. Repeated correctly, sameness is the mechanism of progress. You have been doing the mechanism and calling it stagnation because it doesn't look like a montage. You call it weakness that you still feel afraid before doing hard things, the phone call, the appointment, the conversation you keep rehearsing at midnight. That fear, remember, is a smoke detector, not a verdict. The fact that you do the thing anyway, afraid, unrecorded, unapplauded, is not adjacent to courage. It is the exact and only definition of courage available to you. Courage performed without fear isn't courage. It's ease. You have been doing the harder version and marking yourself down for the difficulty, when the difficulty is the proof. You call it failure that you have no story to tell yet, no launch, no title, no headline. But a story with no climax yet is not a broken story. It is a story in its second act, and every story that ever mattered had a second act that looked, from the inside, exactly like nothing happening. The reader who quits at the middle never finds out the middle was the setup. You are not behind. You are mid-book, and mid-book is supposed to feel like this. Here's the reframe, stated flat so you cannot slide past it. Every quiet thing you dismissed as insignificant was actually the evidence file. Not proof you're falling behind. Proof of exactly the opposite. The version of you that got up anyway, stayed decent anyway, kept a promise anyway, with no one grading it, that version has been quietly passing a test with no invigilator for longer than you've noticed. You don't fail a test like that by feeling scared while taking it. You fail it by not showing up. You have shown up. Repeatedly. That is the whole test, and you have been passing it in a room you thought was empty. Stop waiting for someone to hand you a scoreboard that finally counts your real effort. Build your own ledger. Not for anyone else to read, for you, so the voice stops getting away with editing the record. Tonight you did the dishes when you were exhausted. That's a line in the ledger. Last week you told a hard truth instead of an easy lie. Line in the ledger. You have been paying a debt in a currency the loudest parts of the world don't recognize, and it is still real money. It still buys the only thing worth buying, a self you can trust, built out of 10,000 small, correct, unclapped choices. Nobody is coming to hand you proof that it counted. You are the only witness who was ever going to be reliable. Start acting like the witness whose verdict actually matters. The decision. So here is where the negotiating ends. You can keep waiting for the applause to arrive before you believe the work is real. That is a wait with no scheduled end date. You could be waiting the day you died, still keeping score by a scoreboard that was never watching. Or you can decide, right now, in this exact minute, that the work was already real the moment you did it, applause or none, forever, no further votes accepted. That is the decision. Not a 5-year plan. Not a resolution you'll revisit in January. A single switch, flipped once, that changes what counts as evidence for the rest of your life. From this point forward, the metric is not, did anyone see it? The metric is, did I do the correct thing, whether or not a single person will ever know? That's the whole standard. It's harder than the old one, because there's no shortcut through borrowed applause. And it's easier than the old one, because you no longer need permission from a crowd that was never paying close enough attention to grant it fairly anyway. Picture tomorrow morning. The alarm goes off at the same time it always does. Nothing about the day announces itself as important. No camera. No stage. Just the same tasks, the same fatigue, the same voice waiting to tell you none of it matters because no one's watching. This time, you already know what that voice is. Old wiring, tracking the wrong scoreboard, mistaking silence for failure. You don't have to argue with it. You just have to outwalk it. Do the boring thing anyway. Then do it again the next day. That's the whole method. There isn't a faster one that actually works. Understand what you're actually choosing, because it deserves to be named precisely. You are choosing to become the kind of person whose standards don't rent space in anyone else's approval. You are choosing to let competence, not applause, be the receipt. You are choosing to trust the version of you that shows up when there is nothing to gain from showing up, because that version, it turns out, was always the real one. The version that only shows up for a crowd was never trustworthy to begin with. You already knew that. You just didn't have permission to say it counted more. This is the moment the story usually needs a big external event to hinge on, a diagnosis, a collapse, a public failure loud enough to force a change. You don't get to wait for one of those, and you don't need one. You get to choose this on an ordinary evening, listening to a voice you can't even see, on a day that will not be remembered by anyone but you. That is not a smaller decision than the dramatic version. It is the same decision, made honestly, without the theater. If anything, it's harder, because no crisis is forcing your hand. You are choosing it because it's true, not because you were cornered into it. So decide. Not later. Now, while the resolve is warm. The next time you finish something hard and the room stays exactly as silent as it was before you started, you already know what that silence means. It means you did it right. It means the myelin wrapped a little tighter. It means the debt got a little smaller. It means you passed a test nobody else was grading, which is the only kind of test that was ever actually yours to pass. Nobody is going to clap. Clap for yourself, once, quietly, and go to bed. Then get up and do it again tomorrow. That's not a consolation prize. That is the entire game, played correctly, by someone who finally understands the rules. Oh Utero. If this found you at the right moment, you know it. Subscribe to LifeForge, because the next 30 minutes might be the exact push someone else needs at their own 3 a.m., and you sharing it costs you nothing and might cost them everything they've been carrying alone. You came in tonight looking for proof that your quiet effort counted. You're leaving with something better than proof. You're leaving with the decision to stop needing it. Go build the next boring day like it's the only one that matters. Because it is. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself.